America about their sponsorship. So.
That's right.
Narrow here.
Thank you.
So we have very, very limited time, so I'm just going to jump in, as Dolores reminded us several times. So thank you. It's so nice to be here with all of you, and we're excited to sponsor this event. Really, I'm going to just touch on banks are lending. First off, I want to say a couple of things. I think that, that I don't know if the bank does a really good enough job to say that on a holistic level, where I think everyone is really concerned about the recession and where we're at. The bank has actually modified 819,000 families since the beginning of the recession, which was in 2008. And I just think it's something commendable. We're one of the first institutions to do it, so I just thought I'd mention it. Another really great, fascinating fact is in the first quarter, we actually lent $19.4 billion to small to medium-sized companies, and that actually entails companies from about $2.5 million to $50 million annual revenue. So when people say, "Oh, banks aren't lending," it's like we want to cringe, because that's a vast number of monies that we're helping companies grow every day. So in many different aspects. And really, Heidi and I, our specialty is in the business banking space, so we do manage portfolios. And again, our target is $5 million to $50 million to $50 million annual revenue. And really, the capabilities are anything a business would need, from lines of credit to commercial lending, SBA conventional, equipment financing, treasury management, which is a very complicated on its own. We'll talk about that later. Merchant services processing, which Heidi's going to be talking about today. And also international banking, especially with the merger with Merrill Lynch. We really have a vast international footprint that a lot of people aren't aware of. So we really can help a bank client grow, even if they're, for example, have their main location here and they've got distribution channels in China or India or just other parts of the world. I do want to talk about some of the differentiation between what Bank of America can provide than the other institutions out there. I was talking to the lady next to me actually just recently, and one thing that sets us apart is that the client has one contact. So even though I have a wealth of partners around me, the client really has one contact at all times, and as I profile and understand what the client's needs are, growth strategies, short and long term, I bring in the appropriate partners to help facilitate, and of course I manage and make sure that everything is being executed and of course completed. So it's very, very important. We really have an amazing team, from leasing specialists to SBA specialists to just all different types of product delivery officers that we can bring to the table and help facilitate the client's need. So with that, I think I'm like at 3 minutes, so I'm going to have Heidi talk about merchant services. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm one of Danielle's partners, and I handle the merchant services. I've got some stuff in the back, and I won't go over it all, so if you're interested, I'll let you pick one up. But merchant services is a whole suite of products that we offer at Bank of America, from credit card processing to international processing to gift cards and loyalty programs and things like that. So that's available. Just kind of the main thing I wanted to hit on very quickly is that we do offer a referral partner agreement where we actually pay our referral partners, and that might be where you might be interested in coming in. And that's kind of all here, my card's here, but if you're interested in referring business to Bank of America for merchant services, again, international processing, e-commerce, all these merchant services needs, then we actually have agreements that pay you on a quarterly basis 10% revenue share back for the term of the agreement. So either 3 years or 5 years. And if you're interested, just see me in the back and I can tell you a little bit more about it.
Thank you for sponsoring. Now, neither of the Michelles are in the room, but I want to thank both the Michelles, the servers. are not here to appreciate this, but thank you to them. And thank you, Joe Kibbe, for helping tonight. I am very excited to introduce the speaker this evening, Todd Herschberg. Todd is a seasoned entrepreneur and marketing executive, and he has a heavy emphasis on e-commerce and internet marketing technologies, including SEO, SEM, and social media. He told me what that meant. Search engine, something. He says he's going to talk CPA tonight, so I'm just waiting to see what that's like. He was the director of SEO for Life.com, a comparison shopping search engine, and the marketing director and SEO for Wild Attire, one of the world's largest men's accessory e-commerce stores. He also founded and managed a number of startup tech firms where he is instrumental in the development and refinement of several search engine technologies and marketing programs. He was one of the founders of Alberts Ambry, which is Alberts.com, one of the internet's first specialty software search engines, where he helped to develop both their search algorithms and their fraud control filtering systems. And he also has experience with several other major search engines, including Digital's Alta Vista and Nuhu, which is now DMOZ. Todd is the founder of Ocean Networking Group. I'm sure everybody's heard of Ocean. Huge. And he is, I don't know if this is current anymore, I'm sure you'll update us, the 36th most connected person on LinkedIn with 24,700 plus connections. That's amazing. Yeah. Please, you know what, I'm going to call you up in a second, but first I want to tell you, actually I'll wait till you're done. I'm going to talk about the future meetings, but come on. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. First of all, I'm Todd. I'm also known as that guy, as in everywhere I go. You're that guy, that connected guy. I was in the grocery store a couple of weeks ago, and that's the way somebody came up to me and said, "You're that guy." Yes, I am. I thought you'd be taller. And, well, yes, I am that guy, and I always think of myself as being taller, too. So, I am no longer the 36th most connected person on the planet. I've dropped a couple of spots to number 38, but these things happen. To give you some sense of scope, Barack Obama is number 43.
Wow. How do you know that you're that ranked?
You can do an advanced people search and sort by number of connections. So that'll give you the top 500. So fortunately, I don't have to hit page down too many times. So anyway, we're here to talk about social media. And who here is not a busy person? Okay, good. Then let's teach you how to do it quickly. First thing you have to do, let's start with LinkedIn because we're all professionals. Facebook is probably not where you're getting most of your clients. I mean, maybe it is, but it's far more likely that you're going to get a bigger bang for the buck. For CPAs, I can use that, from LinkedIn. First thing you've got to do, and you should all have a little sheet there, which you may or may not look at while you're reading. It makes a lousy napkin. Step one, complete your profile. If your profile is not complete, you're not likely to be taken seriously when you're networking. If somebody reaches out to me and all they are is a name, it's like, okay, if you haven't taken the 20 minutes it takes to complete your profile, you're probably not going to be networking actively using the system. And that's just the way I view it. Other people, they don't care. Your mileage may vary, but make sure that you complete it. And LinkedIn's pretty good. They'll have a little thing off to the side that tells you what percentage complete your profile is and what you need to do to complete it. Number two, one of the things that it'll give you is your headline. Make your headline compelling. If you put CPA, that doesn't make you stand out in any particular manner. If you say CPA focusing on nonprofit organizations, or the super CPA, or depending on what your particular flavor of branding is, it makes it a little easier for people to say you're that guy or you're that girl, or something that makes you stand out from the crowd and makes it a little easier for you to build your personal brand. And personal brand is a lot of what you're going to be dealing with. Even if you work for a large Fortune 500 company, networking isn't about your company. It's about you. It's about your brand. Item 3, when you're filling out your profile, add your past positions. If you say, hey, I am with company X now, and that's as far as you go, you're not likely to be found as easily by people you've worked with in the past. Because if your name is Bob Jones, gee, I do a search for Bob. Yeah, I wonder what Bob's up to. Oh, there are 30,000 Bob Jones on LinkedIn. Is that the guy I worked with? Just adding those, it's like, yes, that is that Bob Jones. Use recommendations on LinkedIn. When you're filling out your profile, you have a coworker that you've done a lot of business with, you have a client you've done a lot of business with, reach out to them. Ask for a recommendation. Now, asking for a recommendation from a client can be tricky, and there are laws that actually do apply to you. I'll get into that later in the discussion. But if it's a client you have done business with in the past and you no longer have a fiduciary requirement with, you can usually safely reach out and request a recommendation. Then you have to decide, what sort of a connector are you? Are you an open networker, in which case you're willing to connect with people you haven't necessarily met yet? Or are you a closed networker where you're only going to reach out to and accept invitations from people you know personally? There are advantages and disadvantages to both. Needless to say, I'm an open networker. I have actually communicated with a surprising percentage of that 25,100 people in my immediate network. But that's because I do a lot of engagements like this, and I'm out mixing it up and sending emails and replying to emails more than the 10 minutes a day that are kind of the ballywick of this particular discussion. Then join groups. When you're using LinkedIn, there are some advantages to groups that they don't advertise. Number one, it gives you a place to network with your peers. Number two, it lets you communicate directly with people you share a group with. LinkedIn doesn't tell you that. LinkedIn wants you to pay money. They want you to be a subscribing member to communicate with people you're not directly connected to. But if you share a group with somebody and they are open to receiving communications from people they share a group with, you can just send them an email directly through their system without paying the $49 a month that LinkedIn wants to charge you otherwise. And you're all accountants, which is a better deal? Free or, well, okay. Next thing that you do when you're setting up your profile is link Twitter and your blogs. If you're a blogger, there's a little thing in there that says, hey, feed my blog right onto my LinkedIn profile. I'm basically a really, really lazy person. That's why I give this speech on 10 minutes a day. If there is an easier, more efficient way to do things, I am a big fan of it. So if I can blog here, and then go and repeat everything on LinkedIn, that's not time efficient. If I link them, I update it one place, and like magic, it propagates. The same thing with Twitter. If you have a Twitter account, you can link your Twitter account to your LinkedIn profile so that when you update your status, it automatically feeds it out to Twitter. And you can decide on a case-by-case basis if you want that to happen, but it's just a really nice, lazy way of doing things. The last thing, when you're setting up your profile, make a commitment to yourself to stay active. It does you no good to set up your profile and then walk away from it. Yes, you may get found by previous coworkers, and you know, as your nieces and nephews enter the workforce, they may say, "Oh, yeah, no, let me write to Aunt Anita and see what she's up to." But use Facebook for that. If you're using LinkedIn, it's a business tool. Like any business tool, it only works if you use it. All right. Yes?
Are you going to take questions at the end?
I'll take questions at the end.
Okay.
So make a little note, or actually, I'll answer that question at the end. But, all right. Now, on to networking and using social media for ridiculously busy people. All right. Let's say you have 1 minute a day. Who here does not have 1 minute a day? Take your laptop into the bathroom with you. I mean, you've got the time. Okay. Number one, on a daily basis, or at least on a regular basis, update your status on LinkedIn, especially if you've linked it with Twitter. A couple of things. Number one, you're keeping your Twitter feed active. Number two, you are showing up. If you change your status, if you look on the home page of LinkedIn, you've got your status, you've got things on the side, you've got ads, you've got more ads, you've got a couple more ads, you've got other revenue generating things for LinkedIn, and then you see what your network is doing. And it says updates, and you'll see 3 to 5, unless you've really gone stupid and set it to 10, in which case it covers your entire screen, updates from your network. Those are updated more or less real time. So for me, it's kind of a blur. But for most people, when you update your status, your name is showing up on your network's homepage, which is kind of a nice way to remind people that you're out there without having to contact them on a daily basis. So if you update weekly, people who check in on a regular basis may or may not see you, depending on the size of their network. If, they've got 30,000 people, it depends when you look at it. Because I may have 500 of those updating in the same minute that you're updating yours. But most people are not quite as avid networkers as I am. So you're likely to be seen. And be a little intelligent on how you update it. So, for example, if you say, hey, I am now gearing up for Q2 and starting to take new business clients. Well, now your network sees that you are accepting new clients. Is it advertising? Possibly. It depends on which set of FINRA or SEC or what have you rules apply to your particular situation. And again, we'll get into that a little later. But by updating your status in an intelligent manner, you can build your brand with a sentence. You're saying, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing on a regular basis. Okay, that takes you, what, 12 seconds, 13 seconds? All right, hey, we still have the better part of the minute left. All right. Now, you've seen that you've made the update to your status, those comments go out. You see what your network is doing? Comment. There's a little thing that says comment or reply. If you see somebody in your network is doing something interesting, this is a one-line little thing. Saying, hey, I'm doing this. Write back and say, hey, that's fantastic. Here's what I'm doing. You have now opened a dialogue with somebody in your network. Again, I'm not saying, write an entire missive to them. I'm not saying, paraphrase War and Peace. Just, hey, really glad to hear that you got that new job, or, fantastic news that, this is happening in your life. And that's that one-to-one relationship that you're building with your network in 2 seconds. Especially if you see that the 5 people on there are all doing similar things. You write that sentence once, cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. They don't know. Lazy. Lazy is good. All right. Now you're down to, what, maybe 25, 30 seconds left in that first minute. Now you build your network. And just talking around here and saying, I'm going to talk to you like accountants. So break out your calculators or pencils and paper as you see fit. We're going to do a little math. Let's say you reach out to 2 people every day, times 5 days in a work week, times 50 work weeks in a year. How many people have you added to your network?
500.
500 people in a year. That's not too bad. Now, if you don't take weekends off, reach out to 3 people a day, every day. Now you're over 1,000 people in a year. That's not a bad way to build your network. And I'm not saying, you're out there mass mailing, you're not out there, bombarding the universe. You are reaching out to 2 or 3 people a day, and that's it. And it adds up very, very quickly. You say, well, big deal, I've gotten 500 people in my network. Well, that's in your first degree. Now, yes, I have 25,000 people in my first degree. But those people know some people, and those people know some people. Any clue how many people I have in my full network that I can reach through an introduction? Out of the 65 million users on LinkedIn? Any guesses?
5 million.
Close. About 35 million.
Wow. I was thinking of millions.
Let's put it this way. When people connect with me, my second degree connections become your third degree connections, and that adds an average of 4 to 5 million people to people's networks. The numbers add up pretty quickly. I mean, compound interest has nothing on this. See? I can speak. All right, so that's your minute. Because how long does it take you to reach out to 2 people a day? You've gone through your group and you say, hey, here's somebody who has something in common with me. Here's here's a neighbor. Here's somebody I ran into on the street and exchanged business cards with. Send them a note. Say, hey, let's connect. Now, eventually, this system breaks down because, believe it or not, there are these hidden limits in LinkedIn. Most of you probably won't run into those for a while, but LinkedIn actually limits the number of invitations you can send to 3,000. So I am actually out of invitations. They also limit the number of people you can have in your first degree to 30,000. And yes, that's something I'm actually scratching my head going, okay, what do I do next? Because probably within the year, I will be at that limit. So hopefully they'll either change the policy or I'll have to set up a second account and just kind of play some fun games. All right, so that's the 1 minute plan. Any questions on the 1 minute plan? No? Okay. The 10-minute plan. All right, here we go. Building your brand. Like I said, it's all about your personal brand. So, I guess the first thing before you do any of this is figure out, who are you? Most of you are not 18-year-old kids. You probably have some rough idea who you are in your career, but do you have a personal brand? Like I said, I'm that guy. I am, the search engine guy, I'm the networking guy, I'm the social media guy, or, as my wife says, I'm the LinkedIn slut. But, you all deal with companies. You all are familiar with what an elevator pitch is. Where, if you run into somebody, be able to describe who you are and what you do in that 30 seconds. And then take that and try to boil it down to a sentence or two so you can use that as your headline. And have a longer thing that you can put in your bio. And then just make sure that everything you're doing on LinkedIn supports that. So that if you are a CPA, don't say, hey, off for a debauch-filled weekend in Vegas. That may be your personal brand, but most CPAs, it'll probably not be the greatest message to put out there. If you are a nonprofit specialist, every time you're doing something with a nonprofit related thing, make sure you add that into the mix. Make sure you, as they say in politics, stick to your talking points. So make sure you're putting out a consistent message. Now, some really easy ways in that 10 minutes a day to build that brand. Ask a question. Off to the side, when you look at LinkedIn, you'll have up at the top all of these links. There's a little thing over there that says more. And if you click down on that, there's a little thing that says answers. And you can ask questions, and you can answer questions. You can also use your groups to ask and answer questions. But if you get out there and you ask, you say, hey, I'm a nonprofit specialist, and I've run into a chunk of tax law that I'm not clear on. Can anybody offer some advice on this? You'll have tax attorneys and legal specialists who will be more than happy to answer that question because it gets their name out there. But even asking that question gets your name out there. You're saying, I'm a CPA. This is my area of expertise. I mean, you could just ask the question and say, when dealing with nonprofits on a 501(c), or whatever the correct language is, do I use this form for filing in the state of Kentucky? May not be your specific area of knowledge, but by phrasing it that this is what I'm doing, you're getting the message out. You're really driving home, you're getting your talking point into the question without it being heavy-handed. Next way to build your brand? Answer a question. Hey, I'm a small business owner. I've got some quarterly filings coming up. I had a deal that I closed on an airplane. Flying from California to Chicago. I was actually over Utah when I signed the paper. What tax do I have? What state tax do I have to file? Because I have no idea. But one of you may. But if you're able to answer that question, you've put out, hey, here's at least my interpretation of it. And you're getting word out there that you are an expert in this area. So if you've established yourself as an expert and somebody is looking for an expert, who do you think they're going to choose? Somebody who has already said, you know, here is my interpretation or my logic and my reasoning, and people have said, you know, hey, yeah, that's a great response, or somebody who has not gotten their name out there at all? Which is easier to find? And who's easier to take? Okay. Next thing, work your groups. Get involved in your groups. Like I said, join your groups, not only because it's a really cost-effective way to reach out to people, but it's also a really good way to build your brand. And again, this is just a couple of minutes here and there. Ask a question, answer a question. All right, now, yes, some days it may take you 10 minutes to write a response because, you know, I'm in a plane over Utah flying. You may not be able to answer that in a line or two. But for every day that you spend 12 minutes on that, you spend 6 minutes on another day. But you get involved with things. The more active you are, the more your name gets out there. The more your name gets out there, the more you build your personal brand. Now, if you really want to go the high-end route, we can take it to the 30-minute brand where you actually start your own group, and then you get to play all sorts of weird games. I run a group called the Well-Dressed Professionals. I am a t-shirt and jean kind of guy, but I started a group for people who don't believe in casual Fridays. I started this group because I was the marketing director for a men's apparel company, and we sold neckties. And I wanted to be able to market to guys who wore ties every day, and this was just a convenient marketing way to have people come to me rather than me having to go to them. When you are active in a group or you own a group, you are by definition the expert. Me, the t-shirt and jean guy, running the Well-Dressed Professionals group, I have been contacted by the Wall Street Journal for my opinion on the width of ties. I mean, I've got some ties. I used to sell them. But I have no clue. But the people at the Wall Street Journal seem to think that I run this group, I'm active in it, I must be an expert. Not a bad way to build your brand. Because appearance online is 90% of the game. There's an old cartoon from prehistoric days of the early web, and it was a picture of a dog sitting at a keyboard, and the caption read, "On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. On the internet, nobody knows that I never wear a tie." So each of you has your own niche. Each of you has your own specific piece of networking business that you can do to support that niche. Whether it's joining groups and being active in it, whether it's building groups and creating things, whether it's just being active and reaching out to folks. Another thing you can do in that 30-minute plan is proactively connect people. If your network and you're seeing things, okay, you know, so-and-so is looking for, or so-and-so just got this, or so-and-so just did this, in your head, just try to keep, even if it's a handful of active people, as your network grows, you will find ways to put these pieces together just by sheer volume. Now, for me, it's really convenient because it's a not insignificant revenue stream at this point. When people come to me and they say, "Hey, you know, I'm trying to raise capital for my business." Well, I know 9 VCs and you know 300 investment banks and some really nice folks from B of A. So I have contracts with these folks, and I can say, "Okay, you know, here we go. Let me make this introduction." if it's a good fit. I'm not gonna be dragging people off the street and say, so and so is trying to raise $4 million here. But if somebody says to me, hey, I'm trying to raise capital, I've got a form letter that goes out, and I say, okay, I need your pro formas, I need your exec summary, I need your exec bios, I need this, that, the other thing. And I fire that off to them. And, 90% of the time that's the last I hear of them because they just want money and give it to me. But the other 10%, I hear back in a couple of weeks. It's like, okay, we've gotten all this together, and then I'll spend an hour, and I'll review that, and I'll pass that along. And, if somebody's looking for $100,000 in mezzanine financing or a bridge loan, and I get a 5% finder's fee, I'm okay with that, because that's a really nice weekend. Okay, now because you guys are all in the financial sector, I assume. Anyone not? Okay, good. There are laws that pertain to you specifically about how you can use social networking. Now, every specific niche has its own set of guidelines, so you'll have to make sure that you familiarize yourself with the laws. I've included a couple of the big ones. FINRA in February came out with a new set of social media guidelines called 1006, and it specifies how you can and cannot legally use social media. If you are using it as an advertising tool, it does fall under the FINRA advertising guidelines. Even if you are not using it as an advertising tool, you must have a permanent archive. So just having it on Twitter is not a permanent archive. You need to have something in place internally that will maintain a hard copy or non-rewritable system in place. If you are dealing with a larger company, you should have a compliance officer. If your company is large enough that it requires a compliance officer and you don't have one, you really need to get one, because the fines for this are non-trivial. I think they start at 100,000 and go up quickly from there. And I believe that is per message. So if you've got a group of people working under you, and they're out there saying, hey, guess what we're doing? You may find yourself liable for very, very large amounts of money. So make sure you look into your specific guidelines. If you are dealing with public companies, the FTC, okay, I have to look up the number on this one. The FTC 16 CFR Part 255 deals with endorsements and testimonials in advertising. This one is kind of bizarre. If your company has people working for it who blog, and they blog about your company, they must note that they work for the company, even if it's on their own time, because otherwise it is deemed to be an endorsement and falls under the FTC rulings. So, and again, that I believe the penalties can range up to $250,000 per instance. So again, something to be aware of. If you don't have a compliance officer, make sure you get one. And then, this is a big one, the Reg FD. Anybody here deal with Reg FD? Okay, it deals with full disclosure. If you or any of your clients are a publicly traded company or thinking about going public, you're all familiar with the quiet period? Make sure you don't violate that. Even if it's an employee on their own time working on a laptop in a restroom somewhere, blogging about this, that, the other thing, if they mention things during the quiet period, that is a violation, and you can be liable. So make sure your employees and folks at your companies know that. Now, this is not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination. If you deal with HIPAA, HIPAA has its requirements. If you deal with, everybody's got their own, every federal, state, local bureau has their fingers in it, because technology is always ahead of the law. So a lot of these things are kind of slap-dab pulled together to try to patch holes in the law. One of the things that most of you are dealing with taxes in some form or another. If you are dealing with your network and people are writing an endorsement for you, or you're requesting an endorsement, remember your fiduciary requirements about, are you by requesting a recommendation from somebody, are you disclosing that they are a client of yours? Something to think about. So even if they write a recommendation, make sure that their wording doesn't violate any ethics laws that apply to you specifically. And again, feel free to say, it's a really great recommendation, that I saved you billions of dollars in a tax case, but can you reword this so that I'm legal? And most clients are probably going to be pretty understanding of that, especially if you've saved them billions of dollars in a tax thing. Okay, do we have any questions?
I just was going to make a comment. You didn't bring it up, but you covered some bases. For doing invitations, that you don't need to just use the standard one line.
Absolutely. If you're sending an invitation, again, if you're trying to get it done in a minute, yeah, use the standard. If not, take the time, write yourself a little form letter and just cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. Says, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I do. Here's why I think we should connect. Hey, we're both CPAs. Hey, we're both in Orange County. We're both in Southern California. I see you used to date my wife. Let's, whatever the connection is, and even if it's, even if it's something stupid, there is always a way to connect with people. One of the things that I frequently do is, when I was reaching out to folks, I try to say hello in as many languages as I possibly can. So if I see somebody's in India, I'll say namaste. You would be amazed how far something like that goes. Most people are, especially most Americans, just assume everybody speaks English and to hell with you if you don't. So just reaching out to somebody in their own language makes a big difference. Most people will say, wow, this is somebody who's at least making that baby step towards an open and more reasonable communication. Now, sometimes it backfires when people write back to me in Hindi, and I'm going, man, Google Translate, all right. But it never hurts to find some commonality. One of the things I tell people is, no matter how obscure the connection is, there's always some way to reach out to people. I've started taking notes. I'm thinking about writing a book called Talking to Strangers and Other Ways Your Mother Was Wrong. But you can always find some commonality. And finding that commonality opens doors like you would not believe. Now, I realize a lot of you are financial people, and a lot of non-financial people get nervous talking to you because you either speak numbers, and most Americans are enumerate, or, oh God, taxes, or finance, or things that the average American is just afraid of. So find something non-finance related if you're reaching out to a non-finance person. Say, hey, our kids go to the same school, or you dated my wife, or whatever it is. Just find that thing that opens that door. And it's going to differ from person to person. But, okay, how many people here are absolutely stupid? Okay, good. Then I trust that you can all find something. Okay, any other questions?
Can you link it to Obama? Or if not, who's the most famous person that you can
I am actually already connected to Barack Obama. When the campaigns were running, I was already sort of this super connector. So McCain's campaign reached out to me. Obama's campaign reached out to me. Let's see.
How about Sarah?
Sarah Palin, no. She is LinkedIn, I believe, but just not. Her team was not particularly good at utilizing the social media, and I've been out of invitations for about 2 years now. So, yes.
I want to talk about courtesy, you know, the do's and don'ts, because I belong to a couple of groups, and actually I've asked some questions, honestly, got some great answers that help. But I've noticed I'm losing interest in one of the groups because it's almost like someone is using this. You see the same people putting it's not a true give and take Q&A. And is there when it's overkill? When do you go overboard?
Well, that is going to vary from group to group. I mean, I'm a member of some groups that are literally hundreds of thousands of people, and you know, things get lost in the noise just by sheer volume. I'm also a member of groups that have, you know, a dozen people in it, and yeah, that, you know, you post something twice, it gets repetitive when there are only 12 people in the group. And you have to kind of draw your own conclusion. When people start complaining, you've gone too far. And try to judge based on the group. And if the group gets out of control for your taste, maybe it's time to start your own group. And say, you know, because then you get to moderate it. And you get to say, okay, this person is being an idiot. Delete. Oh, that's a great key. Oh, that is such a wonderful key. Now, some groups are just better behaved than others. Ocean, which is 7,000 plus members, and is, I guess it's 3 or 4 years old now. 2 people. 2 people I have had to bounce, which is not a bad ratio. I have other groups where they're smaller, and I've had to bounce people, you know, the first day in there, where I say, you know, okay, these are our general guidelines. Please abide by them, and you know, don't keep posting. Yeah, okay. Post. Delete. Other questions?
What are your thoughts on, putting up pictures, like a picture, a profile picture?
Again, getting your profile to 100% is kind of critical. One thing I do recommend is when you're putting up a picture, put up a picture of you. When you put up a logo, you can have your account banned because it's perceived as direct advertising. Especially if you're in the financial services, you may be in violation by putting up a logo because it's an advertisement.
A lot of them have logos.
Excuse me?
A lot of them have logos.
Yeah, well, all it takes is one agent to come through and go, oh, flag, and they can get shut down or fined.
Does that go for your company too then? You can't put your company logo on if you have a group page?
Again, when you're dealing with the specifics of a logo, and that'll deal with the specific federal and state guidelines that you're responsible to adhering to. I'm a marketing guy. You know, I can get away with just about anything, but financial services people, you know, the rules and regulations are just so strict and the penalties are so severe that I say, definitely check with your specific governing body.
If you put up with the photo on the LinkedIn, don't you think you make yourself open to identity fraud? Because I really had a lot of credit from entering into this country, and if anybody could have put a picture to it, then I might have been out of the driver's license by now. So,
I have not heard of any cases of that, but just because I haven't heard of them doesn't mean they don't exist. When in doubt, put up a group photo and say, I'm the one in the middle. But make sure that you have. But again, if your profile isn't complete and somebody says, yeah, I want to handle your $100 million corporate account, and you don't have a picture up, that just looks a little funny. It would be a little worse if you listed your country of origin as Nigeria, but the photo is kind of it's a trust building thing. Do you trust somebody who refuses to put up a picture? Question?
Now, someone who's on the market looking for a job, can you give some tips on how to
Absolutely. How many people here are in transition? Okay, we've got a couple. Beautiful. All right. Step one, network. Reach out to people. It used to be, when I was a young lad, that you never ever told anyone you were looking for work. It was just not the right thing to do. You say, oh, I'm a consultant. But in this economy, telling people you're out of work is no personal shame. If you're doing consulting work, great, put that on there. But make sure that you get word out that, hey, I'm looking for work. Reach out to some recruiters. Remember, a recruiter doesn't make any money if they don't place you. So most recruiters are pretty open to hearing from folks saying, I'm looking for work. So, any recruiters here? If somebody reaches out to you and says, I'd like to connect, here's my background and I'm looking for my next opportunity, would you say, oh no, that's spam? Most recruiters are pretty open to hearing from people. Really good way to find recruiters is search for them. Most recruiters are not particularly stupid people. Most recruiters will tell you, hey, I'm a recruiter. So if you go to the people search, there's a little thing right next to it that says advanced. Click on that and you can go down to industries, and under industries you can find human resources and staffing, or staffing and recruiting, I believe it is. Check that little box and then type in finance or type in CPA or whatever your particular niche is, and you will get a list of 30,000 recruiters. Especially lately, that number may have gone down a bit since everyone's starving. But you'll find people saying, yeah, hey, I'm a recruiter, reach out to me. Here's my home phone number. Here's my personal email address. Please reach out to me and do it. Another way you can do it is kind of reverse the search. So rather than searching for finance in staffing and recruiting, search for staffing or recruiting under finance. Because depending on how some recruiters will list themselves as human resources and staffing professionals, others will list themselves as the industry they specialize in. Another thing that you can do to really find your next opportunity is create a target list. Say, these are the companies I would like to work for. And then say, okay, who is the person who would hire me at these companies? Okay, great. Now, how do I get to that person? most of the time, by the way you get to that person is through me. It just works out that way. I just know everybody. And when you connect with me, send me a note. I'm always happy to connect people. There is absolutely no purpose in having a large network if you can't help people. You know, just collecting business cards and piling them up on the floor by my desk, it does nobody any good, and it makes me sort of an idiot. You know, why would I go to all that effort? But when somebody says, "Hey, I'm looking to reach, you know, the head of finance for Panasonic," like, okay, well, let's see. Okay, I'm not directly connected to the head of finance for Panasonic, but I am connected to the VP of marketing at Panasonic, who is connected to the head of finance. Perfect. Send me a note. Let's get the ball rolling and make that introduction. Why do I do that? Because it's nice. It's the right thing to do. It's all about paying things forward. And the fact, of course, somewhere down the line, you know, Panasonic is looking for a consultant, and you say, "Hey, I know. Todd got me the job here, so let's." I'm not proud or stupid. You know, I'll take a referral. So you're all invited to connect with me if we're not already. We may already be. Let's see. How many people are connected to me already on LinkedIn? Oh, wow. Jackpot. All right. So if you look down at the bottom of the sheet, my LinkedIn profile is there. Are we connected just via Ocean or no? We are connected via Ocean, but through Ocean I can't pass along necessarily unless if it's somebody in Ocean, just reach out to them directly. If it's somebody who's not in Ocean, I may not be able to pass you along unless we're directly connected. But again, I'm always happy to connect with folks and to try to make things happen. Yes?
Regarding I guess on the profile where there's the headlines.
Yes.
Is that, how would you advise somebody who's in the job search mode to utilize that?
Generally, what I recommend is that you use that as your one sentence sum up who you are. I wouldn't necessarily say out of work accountant. That doesn't necessarily get the right talking points out there. But
what have you seen that works well?
Well, I mean, I generally don't like to take specifics, but it's a small group. What the heck? Who are you? What do you do?
I have my CPA. I worked in commercial real estate for 20 years.
Okay.
And I'm looking to leverage that experience.
Okay. Commercial real estate finance professional, or you know, let's see. There's
It's like actively searching for new opportunities or something.
Sure.
Like, so that people know.
You can. I mean, you can work that in, or you can work that in down in the
that's
body.
What I have on my profile. That's my opening line on my profile, but I don't use that headline, I guess, which you can update.
Yeah. For your updates, like I said, tweak that every couple of days at least. You know, I try to update mine on a daily basis. I usually put out little tips and tricks, and you know, hey, you know, here's something new on LinkedIn, or you know, here's how to leverage Twitter or whatever to really get word out. But if you can say, worst case is you say, hey, you know, here's a news article I read in my industry, where this way people who are seeing your updates are saying, this is something you're following, this is, you know, I'm interested in this, I'm going to start watching your profile more carefully.
Okay, almost like blogging.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a Twitter feed, it's you know, microblog, but yeah, I mean, certainly update that on a regular basis, and yeah.
LinkedIn's kind of more static. I've been wanting to bring things in, for instance, home inventory software, free software, where people can, a link to that, where people can go and pull it off. Is that possible on LinkedIn?
There are some applications you can embed on your profile. The easiest way to do that is to blog it and then link the blog in, because that way people are seeing, here's the blog entry, and as long as you update it and it doesn't get too spammy, people take a look at it.
Is there any way you can email network people without using the email portion of LinkedIn?
Yes and no. If you have your network, you have a database, and you can actually download all of the email addresses in that database. Unfortunately, at this point, it does not allow you to filter, so you can't say, yeah, I only want the email addresses for people in Orange County. So, right, it's going to give you name and email address. So, unless you compare that against your own database.
So how would you do that? You just go to your network and just download it?
Right. If you go to My Connections, there'll be a little link for downloading your address book. So, yes?
You had that out here about updating your status and having a feed into Twitter. How do you have a feed into Twitter?
When you look at that, there'll be a little thing right there that says, link your Twitter account.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. If you can't find it, send me a note, and I'll be happy to send you the link for it. Yes?
Now, I belong to several groups, so if I answer a question in a group, can anybody respond to my question?
Yes. No matter how stupid they are. and believe me, you will have incredibly stupid people.
And will I be able to connect with those folks or respond back?
Yeah, you can always reply. You can reply private. You can remember, if you share a group, you can, unless they have set so that they do not want communications from group members, and that is an active choice they have to make. The default is that you can. So you can fire off a note either replying privately or reply to the group.
Okay. Okay. Do my connections see that I'm answering a question?
To some degree, yes. They can see that you replied to questions in, not within a group, but if you're replying in the answers section, those are publicly available to everyone. So they will see that you replied to questions in a section, but not necessarily what questions.
Okay.
And again, your mileage may vary. If you've got 6 people, it may show up, if they have small networks as well, it may show up and stay there for a while. If I may or may not ever see any activity that anyone in my network does.
Right.
So, all right. Other questions, comments, complaints, bitches, moans, hot shots? All right.
Do you have a blog?
I do not have a blog.
Whoa!
Yes. Like I said, this is the guideline for how to do things in a minute, 10 minutes, a half an hour. I'm a really